dialogue of, shizzle that we crizzle up.
There you go, Snoop.
All right, guys, what the hell's going on, man? It's a lovely Saturday morning. Generals are back in the house chopping up some shit. I think we might have one or two others pop in. Maybe like one of these days, freaking Josh will get up. Well, not go to sleep or get up, to do one of these. But I know it's hard because he's on a West Coast.
Probably just going to bed right now.
I was here at 6 a.m. West Coast time, and that was rough. Yeah, I looked in playback. I could see my face, bags under my eyes and stuff. But I was able to do it. I think he should be able to do it.
What time do you guys get up in the morning?
5:30, 6.
6:30?
I'm up at 4:30 every day.
Yeah. I woke at 5:20 this morning. Sorry.
I'm usually 7:20, but I've been getting up earlier. I've been getting up whenever the sun comes up. I usually can't sleep through it, and
I'm surprised you're not up at 4:20, man.
Yeah, right. No, I actually stopped doing that after California. Usually after a California trip, I can't smoke too much because I consider myself a smoker, but they're at like Olympic level in California. It's so much stronger, and they just throw back joints all day long. And my friends are all entrepreneurs and they're successful, but I mean, they're just throwing them back. And it's to the point where I'm just completely disassociated and don't even really feel like myself. So normally when I come back after a California trip, I knock it off for at least a few weeks. So sleep schedule does change. Naturally, I wake up when the sun comes up, and I start getting tired when the sun goes down. So I'll stick to that cycle.
Yeah, I'm still like a 4 to 4:30 guy. I don't even have an alarm. I just get up. Ma, if you wanted to table something on corporate gigs, business employees, fire away, man.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So I mean, this goes more into building a business and helping guys stay motivated. So, this recent venture that I got in on the other shoulder, starting to build out sort of a life insurance business and getting some guys that are working for me in sort of an agency model, but all super, super young, like early 20s. I'm the oldest guy by far. I think the next youngest guy maybe that I'm working with is like 27. But, we live in the fucking day and age now where you get these guys that are on like money Twitter and they're talking about their drop shipping and FBA and their e-com and fucking sales courses or whatever. And they're driving Lambos and flexing all these $50,000 watches and stuff like that. And so, that catches the eyes of a lot of young cats. But they get into a business like this, which has, all commission sales. You have startup costs, just like running your own business. If you're selling t-shirts, you got to buy inventory first, right? You've got to spend money to make money. And so, especially guys that have never done, sales or B2C, just phone dialing 500 times a day. It's a really tough business to stay motivated in. And so I'm at a little bit of a different position than most of the guys that I work with because I have a full-time job that I'm doing as well. And this is kind of like a side gig right now. So I'm sort of funding this other venture with my salary, and the eventual move is to move over and work for myself full time. But I've got the additional funds to spend on leads, to buy an LLC and file that, to be able to travel, to rent potentially office space or shared space, and be able to put up more shots. But there's some guys that I'm working with that they have to choose whether to, dial and try to sell or get behind the wheel of a car and do Uber Eats or pick up a shitty temp office job for 5 weeks so they can stack some funds. So,
do you guys do a draw on the new cats, or
say it again?
Do you guys do a draw? Like they get like a base 2K or something like that, to cover living expenses, and they get a draw against that?
No, it's
a commission.
It's all 100% commission. Like they pay for their own leads. Like they're all 1099. So what I'm looking for sort of help on and advice on is just ways to, keep a team motivated, especially when I'm sort of in a different position where I haven't been a 22-year-old broke kid for a really long time. And it's easy for me to say, just buy more leads or just to go do more or this and that, where we're just in such different positions. I'm so, as somebody that's hired employees and has kind of seen that and run that business. And Jaron, I know you had experience too with building out like the call center you did. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm really interested in right now, is just how to keep guys from quitting and how to, relate to them and keep them pushing.
Generally speaking, they got to get wins, and they got to get some wins as early as possible. The later the wins take, the less likely they are to stick around. Do you guys do like training with them, or how do you start them off?
Yeah, we've got a lot of training. They got a lot of resources. So not to bore everybody to death, but with the insurance thing, but we are part of the Real Financial family. So stuff that Brad Lee runs. And so we have access to all of the training and,
is that what Brad Lee does or did?
Real Financial? Yeah, that's his gig. And then
so he's kind of doing the same thing that Patrick Bet David was doing with life insurance.
Exactly. Like that's
how
sort
they
of
made
the
their
model
money.
that we're working under. So PBD's model, and he had his exit. And then there's another organization, Family First Life, that's sort of under that umbrella. And then we sort of branch out from there with different agencies. So, so that's sort of the big picture, is trying to plan for an exit and building an agency that, these big VC insurance firms will buy, and we have a 7-figure exit. But so we have access to there's weekly training calls. There's national calls. There's a lot of resources for these guys. But everybody.
What's the problem? It's like retention. They won't stick around. They won't close. They fall off too fast.
It's just, I can tell guys getting discouraged. We've had guys that have quit. We've had guys that have sold and that have quit. I think a lot of these guys have just not been punched in the face by life. And it's a real rude awakening for them. So just don't want to get these guys, keep them getting discouraged, and just say,
what's your retention rate? Like, let's say you get 100 kids that start, or we'll just use 10. Let's just say that you start with 10, today, like how many are still around after 3 and 6 months?
So it's a little bit too young for those kind of metrics. I think we really we just got this off the ground, I want to say in September. Now we have like a giant Discord channel where we've got over 200 members, but I would say there's probably 50 to 60 that are active. So some guys get in there and they join and they just go dark and they never turn up. There's sort of different levels, right? You've got to pass your test, or you've got to take the pre-licensing course, pass your test, get contracted, and then start selling. So there's different sort of ways, and there's different milestones that it's really easy for guys to fall off. Like they give up on the pre-licensing, or they fail their test 3 times, or they just, they just don't go through their end of the process. So I'm sure there's data we have around that, but.
Okay, but I mean, then you've got September. So you got September, October, November. We're into December now. So we got at least 3 months worth of data. So how many of what percentage of the guys are still on it and active?
It's hard to say, because again, if the guys aren't participating in the Discord and they're not, I would say if I just took a shot at who was active versus who's not now, I would say if we had, I'd say probably 80% retention, maybe 75, 70.
Okay, so out of those 7 or 8 out of 10 that are still retained, how many of them are actually closing deals and making money that they can live off?
Maybe half, probably less. So
it's actually not bad.
Maybe
it's actually not bad, believe it or not. Yeah.
For commission-only sales, that's not bad at all.
Maybe like 1 out of every 10, maybe 2 out of every 10 guys is actually, closing any business.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you're getting 2 out of 10 turning into something, you're doing all right, probably. Like, you're going to have to sort through a lot of crap, like, especially in today's world, because we got like this entitlement, bratty sort of like, newer generation. They said, oh, okay, boomer. It's like, okay, dipshit. Like, are you actually doing the work? Like, can you figure it out? Because like the vast majority of younger kids that I see today, they're like, I just deserve, like this, that, and the other thing. And they're not willing to put in the time or the work. Right. So I think that if you're getting like 2 out of 10 of them turning into something real, it's actually not bad. I think when I was running my sales teams in the call center at my debt relief business, like we'd be lucky to keep maybe like 2 or 3 out of 10, until like suitable sales guys that were making money. There was always that like 1 guy out of 10 that was like, knock it out of the park, sort of dude that was just like a killer. So that's kind of what like the whole startup process is. Did you ever see Boiler Room?
Yeah.
Yes, loved it.
It's like that entire process of like calling them pussies and like browbeating them and like treating them like shit, like gets like, and I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but there's a reason why they always did it, right? It was like, let's get rid of these weaklings and these like, people that don't have the backbone for it quickly, so we can focus on the ones that do. The problem is that one of the things I learned, that if you spend too much time and resources on people that are really bad salesmen, then all you really end up with is just really good, really bad salesmen, right? So the best thing to do is to identify the shit, get rid of it, and then spend your time and resources on the really good salesmen, so you can turn them into like great salesmen.
Yeah. I mean, for me, a lot of it is like, I'm leading from the front. Like I'm producing, 4K in 2 days this week, Thursday and Friday combined. I did 4K, right? So, that's more than what a lot of people make, a month. And so, I'm trying to lead from the front, lead by example, but at the same time, I've got a different situation than most of these guys. Like a lot of these guys don't have, a bankroll and a cushion where they can just run
Yeah,
up.
you have a book of business when you start the month, right? Like you have recurring revenue coming from some of these books, right?
Yeah, but I mean, even like the startup, like even before that, like these guys are getting in and starting out, and it's like now, these guys can't run up a 10K credit card bill spending on lead spend, like I can. So it's like we've got guys that are writing policies on themselves so they can get the advanced commission, so they can spend that on leads. So it's just trying to find ways to keep guys engaged and keep them motivated and get them to see the long game.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why they did draws on, commission sales guys, where they would be like, okay, this is your commission rate, your 100% commission or 95% commission, whatever goes to the house. But we'll give you like a base $2,000 a month draw just to cover your living expenses. And if you can't fucking exceed that within 90 days, and you're fired anyway, right? So it's like that kind of solves that problem to some of their degree as far as like hesitation to start. Because realistically, I mean, if you hustle and you work hard for 3 months, you should be able to do something, like net positive. But it's like there's no real quick and easy to answer that. Like there's so many fucking sales courses, there's so many sales growers, there's so many different approaches they take to it. And at the end of the day, most guys just don't have it in them, right? Like they just don't have it in them. And you're gonna, it's the same thing with like dealing with women, right? Like most women today out there, they're just not worth your time on a long-term basis, right? Like you just kind of like figure that out and like, okay, done, get lost, ghost, whatever, right?
Totally.
Yeah, so there's really no like hack to that as far as I don't know, 50, you got anything on that? Because you're a little bit more of a seasoned gentleman.
Yeah, 20 years ago, it was all the new young guys coming in. I was in high pressure construction management in New York City. And all the young guys, they didn't want to incrementally build up over time. They wanted to get a salary where they were earning huge money and they could go get a 4-bed McMansion in the burbs with a decent car. What I see nowadays with the TikTok and the YouTube and all that is they think they're failures if they're not running around in a $150,000 car after 2 years. So, hence, what Moff said, you can have trouble retaining some of these guys if they don't see instant gratification.
Yeah. That's just the tone, that's the, that's where guys are calibrated today. Right. And there's a lot of like one of the big promises, there's so many fucking distractions out there, right? Like there's promises online, like you said, like money Twitter or whatever you want to call it, random dudes that are like, sign up for this college or my course or whatever. And like, there was this dude, I can't remember his name, but he just got fined by the government for something like, was it 32 or $62 million? He basically built this big fuckery of like a Amazon FBA network where he made these big, like outlandish claims of how much money you can make off Amazon FBA. He even got to the point where he started like selling courses for like, a few $100 to $1,000, and he worked all the way up to like $100,000. And he convinced idiots to give him $100,000 for him to build them like a turnkey Amazon FBA business where they would just sort of like hand it, like they would invest $100,000 in, and then they would end up with a business that would purportedly like turn over $150,000, $200,000 a year in sales receipts. Of course, most of them never did. So this motherfucker made off with $100,000 in each one of these fake businesses that he made through this investment thing, and nobody ever really got what they were expecting, right? Like there's always massive like distractions out there. Oh, look, a shiny ball. Oh, look, a squirrel. Like, oh, if I go and do this, then I'll be a whatever, right? It's like the chances of you rolling in a Lambo wearing $100,000, $500,000, watch or whatever within a year or two is very, 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 very fucking slim. Like almost every overnight success that I know that's an entrepreneur that runs a business, that overnight success took 10 to 20 years for most of them, right? And that doesn't even count like the failed attempts at whatever else, sort of went up along the way. So it's like gumption, man. It's like backbone. Like, is this guy a pussy, or do they have like, the strength and the fortitude to push forward? Like when somebody tells them to fuck off, when somebody hangs up on them, when whatever, like it's just push.
When these guys, like as you said, Rich, $100,000 for this turnkey thing, they would have been much better off just spending a few K to get into a better network of dudes. Because there's guys, as we all know, in this group that will give you free business advice, free legal advice, free medical advice, all kinds of shit you could pull out of this group. And that's
100%.
just and that's just joining a network. If you can't use a network of guys, you're not going to be able to take a turnkey business thing that some guy set up and start selling.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with networks of guys in communities, right? Like you'll get guys that'll join and they never do the work even in there, right? You know, like there's always
Yeah.
that ratio of guys that like, oh yeah, I want to be part of the cool kids, and then they don't do anything to be a cool kid or to
They never get on the dance floor.
yeah, they never get on the dance floor, they never get on the field,
They
right?
sit around the edge and they stare. There's in our own group, there's a couple of guys come out of the woodwork in the last few days that admitted they're lurkers
Yeah.
and they need to get in more. They need to get involved more.
Yeah, or they get distracted by the wrong things. You know, I've said this many times before. It's like I get flack by like these fucking quitters where it's like, you know, if I say something like, you know, aim to be a millionaire by the time you're 30, like that's not that difficult of a goal. Like $1 million isn't that much money anymore. Like if you want to be set for life, you really need about 10 mil, right? Aim to be at least a millionaire by the time you're fucking 30, so you can multiply that into 10 by the time you're 40. Like there's lots of ways you can do it. Like nobody's going to hand you anybody that's selling you some like cheat code to ABC, you know, like all the way through Z to make $1 zillion. They're fucking lying to you. I can tell you straight up right now.
The only cheat code I've come across is your network, and
Yeah.
I'll die on that sword. You know, is that if you build a proper network, like this week a few people have met my son. He's 14. And, you know, my ex-wife's kind of like, oh, he needs to go be a geologist. Every single one of my buddies that's met him said, do not let that kid go anywhere near that. He needs to be running his mouth just like you, having some kind of people fucking job, a fucking lawyer or some shit like that, you know? So, you know, you need to start when kids are in their mid to early teens, you need to start looking at what their potentials are.
Yeah, if you put them in different environments, some of them have to be difficult that are going to challenge them. See what they rise to the occasion on, because there's something there, right? Like, you know, you have to test boys, especially. Like, you know, girls are a little bit different, but boys need to be tested, right? Like you got to throw them into the fucking pit and they gotta figure stuff out, right? Like boys are problem solvers, especially if you want to develop skills to become an entrepreneur. The most important muscle that you have to grow is your problem solving muscle.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing from all of this is like you either got it or you don't, right? It's really a waste of time to try to save guys that just don't have it. Like you learn really quickly if these guys are going to fucking sink or swim.
Yeah. I mean, like that's how they do it with like the Navy SEALs, right? Like they'll throw them into a difficult, you know, scenario, and if they can't cut it, if they can't hold their breath long enough, if they, like that's why that bell's there, because everybody bitches out. You know, for the most part, it's the same thing in just about every other discipline. I mean, some are harder than others, but it's like sales ain't that hard. It's a numbers game. Pick up the phone and dial. You know, do whatever it is that you got to do. It's like we used to call it dialing for dollars back in collections, right? And like your lead was basically a guy that had no basic math skills, which is why they ended up with, you know, like a debt problem. And you'd have to get them on the phone and convince them to pay a bill that there was no consequences to not paying, really.
Yeah, and Rich, when you say, you know, throw people into the boiler room situation, see if they sink or swim. When I was back in boiler room situation in New York, one of my buddies worked for Cushman and Wakefield. They're one of the biggest property people on the planet. And 3 of the guys started, young kids. And, you know, the floor manager, whoever was the big cheese with the corner office, pulled the 3 of them in. And it was a Friday. Says, if you guys want your job on Monday, if the 3 of you want your job on Monday, you guys bring me back a phone number each on Monday morning of a girl from the weekend. And they're like, why? He says, because if you can't close on a Bridgel Tunnel posse on the Upper East Side, you're not going to be able to close a client. Now get out of here.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover, I think, between sales and game. The skill set is largely the same. That once you get your blueprint down, once you get your scheme down, then really it's just about loading that top of the funnel and then converting them through, and then identifying the inefficiencies or the bottlenecks along the way, so you can get that deal flow working a lot more seamlessly. And I think in my experience, I've done some sales gigs before where you've had to do like the 200, 300 outbound calls a day. I was actually pretty good at that, at scheduling appointments, getting people in the door, but I was usually pretty terrible at closing for sales. But I've noticed I'm more on the consulting side now for larger corporations and some startup companies. And I've noticed in sales, it's largely the Pareto principle applies to that most of the, like, very few guys will be bringing in most of the dollars in the door. And then those are the guys you want to showcase, you want to put on your leaderboard, you want to have the younger guys look up to them and say, okay, well, this is how this guy's running his system. If you emulate this, if you learn the tricks of the trade, then possibly or potentially you can see these results too. But it is really difficult for new guys coming in the door, especially. I'm sure a lot of guys that come in, Moff, are probably kids that don't have much money, they don't have much going on. So really, they don't have much of a runway to start their own business. And you alluded to this earlier. They got to get going very, very quickly. And if they don't, then it's not necessarily that they don't have it. It's just that they literally don't have the funds in the bank that they have to pay the bills. And like, well, shit, I can be doing something else.
What kind of money can a top sales guy make, Muff?
We got a guy in Arizona that's doing $100K a month.
$100,000 a month. Is that off like new business, or is that off a book of business, or is it a combo?
No, that's all net new. I mean, that's guy. He's this dude's a fucking machine, man. He works 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He's in it every day, 8 to 8, just dialing.
Is he a domestic or is he an import?
What do you mean?
Like, is he an American or is he, from like?
Yeah, so we're all based in the U.S.
Right. But I mean, like, was he born American? Grandparents
Yes.
are American.
Yeah.
Great grandparents. Okay.
Yeah, he's an American white dude, and he just fucking crushes. And it's not far fetched to see guys in their first 3 to 6 months start turning around 20K months, 50K months, because the average policy is about $1,000. So the average sale. So the way that it works, and this is where guys get tripped up too, is so you sell an insurance policy. Most companies will pay you in advance of about 75%. So they'll give you 75% of the cash value or the first year value, and that's what your commission is. Now that money has to stay on the books for a full year for you to win all of that. So let's say I sign somebody to a policy today, I get paid 9 months advance, they make 3 months of payments, and then they cancel. Now I got to pay 6 months back of the money that they've paid me. I owe that back to the insurance carrier. So it's not just like one call close, set and forget it, and you're done. You're constantly managing your book. Like the average rep keeps on about 75% retention. The best ones are doing like 85 to 90%.
Let me ask you a question. Can you get a copy of his phone conversations, like his sales pitches?
Yeah, we do live dials every day. So we have Zoom calls. So we're all in there, like bouncing stuff off each other. But he records a lot of stuff. There's a lot of good training material. He's very solid, and he's really hands-on with a lot of the guys too. But
if it was me, like, I wouldn't want him distracted from what he's doing because he's a money-making machine, and of course it's going to it would cost him money to not dial for an hour to do like coaching and training for like junior guys. So
it's like Rogan going on other people's podcasts. Like he loses money.
Yeah, the way that I would do
podcast.
Like the way that I would do it is I would take his phone recordings of his sales pitches, dissect them, break them down into like a weekly presentation. Like whoever, the sales leaders, I don't know if that's you or somebody else, but I would take those audios and I'd break them down and be like, these are the 3 components of why this fucking guy killed it in the sales calls. Here's the opener. Here's the objection. Here's how we overcame it. Here's the close. And then, give him something to shoot for. And like, put fucking, I don't know, whatever his name is. We'll call him like Arizona Bob. Like you make Arizona Bob like the sales avatar of the company and be like Bob. Like this is what Bob does to make money. If you can't, then get the fuck out of here.
I think Jaron made a great point earlier about game and business, and myself and one of the other guys have spoken about the same thing. Like if you come across needy in sales or clients or contracts,
weak,
it'll be just
weak is another really bad one too.
Yeah, if you display neediness, you're toast. You're not going to close any sales. So once you start to walk, crawl and walk in business and in game, a lot of things will start to fall into place.
Let's sorry, go
I
ahead.
have one quick question for you. Are you doing an appointment setting and closer model, or is each individual sales rep managing their leads from start to finish?
Everybody's doing their own thing. So I mean, there's a ton of different ways to kind of write business. You can buy leads from websites. A lot of guys will go around and they will do free seminars in local sort of Section 8 housing, where they'll bring like a box of donuts and some coffee and they'll raffle off an Amazon gift card. And, some guys will go door knocking. I mean,
hang on a sec. What's the ROI to go to a Section 8 housing with donuts and a fucking Amazon gift card? Like, how is that a good customer?
So mostly what we're writing is final expense. it's mostly people that are in their 60s, 70s, early 80s that waited far too long, did not get this stuff put in place, and they have no sort of life insurance coverage or final burial expense whatsoever.
So is it 55 plus housing then?
Yes, usually.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because when I think
55
Section
plus,
8, I think something else.
like
So
lower
it's
income.
55
Well,
plus,
like
yeah.
lower income, but
Okay.
you know, people that are living off their Social Security. And so
one of the problems you have
idea-
with that business model is it doesn't make people feel good. Like, it wouldn't make me feel good to go to fucking like Ontario Housing to do a sales pitch with donuts and raffling off a gift card, talking to people that are about to die, to be like, yo, sign up for this and we'll make sure that your body ends up in a hole instead of in a gutter. You know what I mean? Like that's a bit of a hard sell too.
Well, it's the pitch is like, look, make sure that your family doesn't have to pay for your corpse. It's the insurance carriers. Like, make sure that you're not putting your family in a bad financial spot where they got to pull $10,000 out of their kids' college fund or their.
The other difficult part to that too is that you're dealing with a guy like an avatar that's like mostly given up on life. Like, if you don't work, like if you can't make money and you have to rely on the government putting money in your pocket, you know, with some exceptions, you know, for those that can work, you know, you've got hopeless people, so they're just like, whatever, you know, it's not my problem when I die anyway, right? So it's just a hard customer to sell as well.
A lot of people are like that. Yeah, a lot of people are like that. That's why it's a pure numbers game. It's why it's like, you know, you got to constantly be refilling your pipeline.
Are there like other demographics that you can hit on that would make the sales guy feel better about it, that would be a better customer to interact with? Because it's draining, right? Like, if you deal with a shit hawk, like continuously day in and day out, like there's only a very small percentage of the population that can deal with that, you know, consistently and, you know, pump out big numbers too, right?
Yeah, I mean, you get guys that start to get pretty savvy, and it's a really technical business. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to write stuff. You get into the stuff around like annuities and term policies and different mumbo jumbo. Like, just to get guys started, we just try to make it simple as possible. Like, you're writing final expense burial. You know, you're going to write policies in the range of like $10,000 to $20,000. You're talking anywhere from 50 to, on the low end, you know, on the low end, like $25 a month. On the higher end, 150. So we're not talking about like huge policies. This is like, look, you're going to die and your burial is going to cost 10 grand. You know, for $50 a month, we can make sure that the insurance carriers and these billionaire CEOs are paying for it, not your family. Like that's really what it boils down to.
Do you guys ever move them up from that area? Like, one of the policies that I like, there's a demographic that you can hit on. So let's say that divorced guys are a demographic, because half the people that get
Do we lose them?
Yeah, did Rich freeze on you guys' end?
50. Are you still?
Yeah. No,
Right,
it's
probably going to drop off here in a second.
It's probably tundra up in Canada frozen. But
yeah, there
no,
we go. Yes.
See if he pops back in. Dead air.
We can keep it going.
Yeah, Moff. No, it's an interesting
I love
business
dealing
model.
with
What you
divorce
say?
guys. Dude, I love dealing, like, divorce guys are my favorite people to sell to, because you know what they don't have to do? Check with their fucking wife.
That's one of the biggest sales objections. Oh, let me check with my better half.
Always that.
It's like, you didn't discuss this with her before you came to this meeting. Like, how's the quality of your marriage, sir?
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that earlier. Like, you know, when I was, I remember when I first got married and talking about being like just, you know, blue pilled from the beginning. I was looking at jobs and their hours were awkward, and I was like, oh, let me check with my wife. And I thought, like, no wonder they never called me back, because, you know, you say that, let me check with my wife. It essentially says to a hiring manager, oh, this guy's browbeaten by his wife.
Yeah. Yeah. It's never a real objection. It's always like it's a price thing. Like, my thing to me is, you know, I want to be like, look, man, like, there's a number here that you don't have to check with your wife. Like, that's really what it boils down to. Because I'll come back with it and I'll say, dude, like, well, if it was $5 a month, would you have to check with your wife? No. What about 20? No. What about 50? I'm like, okay, so the number lies in here somewhere. So, you know, there's a point where you're going to be able to, like, you're gonna go buy a gym membership and pay $30 a month. Are you calling her to see if you can pay for a gym membership? Or, like, are you paying for Netflix and you're paying $12 a month for that? Did you call her and ask her for that? Right? Like, you know, it's you just know when that comes up, and you get burned. And too many guys let these guys go, like, you know, and they go and he's like, oh, like, I talked to my wife and she says, like, we can make it without it. I'm like, cool. So you don't wear the pants in this marriage, and that's fine. I don't want to deal with you anyway. So
That's why I asked if you're using a setting and closing type model, because I saw with the El Salvador team, a lot of them spoke English well. They had lived in the U.S. before. They were people that were pretty much identified as Americans, but they didn't have the legal status, and maybe they got in a little bit of trouble with the law and got deported. So that's mostly the guys we hired, but they were able to get the lead interested, able to collect all the required documents, go back and forth, get any sort of additional supporting documents that our lenders required of them. And then when it came time to close, we realized very quickly that we had to kick the lead back to the US and get like a professional closer on there, especially the guys that hadn't been on board with us for that long. They didn't necessarily know how to do that. Maybe they weren't confident enough. Same thing with game. Like we get guys all the time like, oh, I got a number. Oh, I got a match. What do I do now? Or, oh, I got her on a date, and then the date runs 4 hours and they have no plan of where to take that, how to move that to the next step in the conversion process. So we set up an appointment setting and closing model in that gig that I was doing, and that worked very well for us.
And that's exactly what one of the members of the 1%, the guy that lives down, one of the guys that lives down South America, him and me both said that if you don't have the game to close in the dating life, you won't have the game to close in the sales world. And there's just such a correlation. But I'm not sure if you guys know, but there was a group of us decided to like stop consuming alcohol this weekend within the 1%, because we just kind of had it with it. I don't know if it's a topic you guys explore, not like totally cut it out, but
Yep.
we were all just, before I got on the call earlier, we're all just messaging each other. We're all up like at 7:30, fresh as daisies, no, not foggy. And we're like, we started comparing, alcohol-free beers last night. I bought some Sam Adams IPA. One of the other guys bought another one. And we were just like, yeah, it's almost like a blue pill conditioning that, you have to get hammered to enjoy life.
I'm making some good alcohol-free cocktails. Some of my favorite drinks, like, okay, how do we do this? And instead of simple syrup, can I use stevia? And the first ones are kind of crappy, but eventually you get it down. It's just like cooking. You do a recipe enough times, you kind of lock it in. Yeah, with the alcohol thing, I think the last time I drank was with Moth in San Diego. But as I mentioned on the pre-call, I stopped doing the weed a bit. And same thing. You have a little more mental clarity, a little more spring to your step when you get out of bed. Your days start a little earlier. And it's one of those things where you don't realize that you're getting into it. Like I always considered weed or alcohol as a tool. And a lot of guys do this. Alcohol, oh, it's a social tool. It'll help me with my game. Alcohol completely obliterates my game. If you guys saw me in Nashville, there's a night that one of the Canadian guys and I, we pulled a beautiful set of blondes back to my hotel. And then I woke up in the morning. I'm like, oh, where's this Sarah chick? And then I must have had rolling blackouts. So it came back where, oh, I remember her driving up to the front of the hotel. And then I just jumped out of the car because I felt so sick that I went upstairs and must have just passed out. I'm like, okay, I need to not do that anymore. And weed's kind of getting the same way. It just makes you not care. You're like, oh, I could care less if this converts or not. It's like, well, I'm already out. I'm already face to face with this person. Why don't I push it forward to the next step?
Yeah, it's just been, we all spoke about how your Saturday mornings are different, and especially a couple of the guys this week, because we just decided let's set up a signal chat for guys who want to not completely abstain from it, but just reduce the consumption. And two of the guys went to Christmas parties this week, and both their reports were the exact same thing. They said, "What an absolutely embarrassing shit show," because. And you get a lot of social pressure as well. People go, why don't you drink? So what we have started doing is ordering club sodas with a slice of lemon and lime in them. People think they're gin and tonics, and they'll leave you alone. And it's almost like crabs wanting to drag each other into the bucket. So the guys start doing that, and they're just noticing how stupid people are.
It's nice in business too. I started doing this early in my career. I used to drink quite a bit in my 20s. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was always really good when I went to conferences or events or things where I had to be a little crisp, to where once everyone started drinking, I drink too, but I'd be at least 2 drinks behind like the next least drunk person. But now I've noticed doing business events, when you're the sober guy in the room, like people let down their guard pretty quickly. They give you a lot of information that you could potentially use to your advantage. So that I think it falls into more of the playing to win type mindset there. It's like, all right, if I want to get drunk, like Muff and Josh and I threw them back. And I say this all the time. I'm not a big drinker at all, but when I go out with you guys, I love throwing back some whiskeys and letting down the guard and just letting shit fly. But that's not necessarily beneficial to me when I'm in a room of people where I need to be on my game, and I have maybe an agenda or an objective, or I at least need to have a presence in that room rather than being up my head like, oh, I'm slurring my words, or I don't know where I'm at or what I'm doing or where this night's going to end up going. I think those days are long gone.
Yeah, especially in a corporate setting, man. Like, dude, like Christmas parties, like that's something where guys just need to be not drinking. I mean, there's just no reason to be when coworkers get together, like these retreats or these Christmas parties or whatever, they all turn into like corporate fuck fests, and people have to drink because people pretty much hate each other. Like, you don't want to be around people that you work with or whatever in a non-work setting, like sitting there and just being social and pretending to like each other. So you have to numb your like hatred for these people and your distaste for them with alcohol, and then everybody's buddy, and it's just like, yeah, man, I'd rather just abstain like completely from this stuff. For these, it's so ridiculous how this stuff like still goes on, and people rag on me sometimes where I'm like, yeah, like I don't think there should be alcohol in settings that are work functions where men and women are both around each other. Like it's just you're adding fuel to an already, fire. It's just going to get out of control. Like, there's no reason for it.
I don't do that at all.
Companies sponsoring, like companies adding alcohol to these kind of functions is basically them like daring you to fuck around with a coworker and get in trouble and do something fucking stupid.
They call it Black Eye Friday for a reason.
Yeah, Maffa, when I was in New York for that conference where I saw you as you were moving, there every night everyone wanted to go out, and my team was mostly female, and they were fun, but yeah, the girls would get really drunk, and then they'd start, and it's their nature, they realize that, okay, or those lines or those barriers get drawn, or they come down to where they don't realize, okay, this is not a corporate professional work setting anymore. It's just, oh, we're just a bunch of cute girls out in the city, and then here's this guy sitting with us, although we're teammates, and then that line starts to get crossed. And that's why I'm pretty big now on not drinking in corporate type settings, or I call them forced friendship settings, because you realize these same people will throw you under the bus if it can get them ahead. And I don't want to let my guard down around those types of people. That's just a very unwise idea in general. But there's a couple nights we went out, and at least one of the girls in the group, she not an overt pass, but you can tell if you know game, you see that there's indicators along the way to where, okay, if I were to pick up on this, I can move this interaction forward. And for me, it's mostly just like, no, hard line drawn there. I'll flirt with the waitress and stuff or whatnot, but in terms of female coworkers, I think that's a very, very hard line that guys need to draw and just absolutely not let anyone cross.
So, hi, I'm back. Fucking
yeah.
Welcome to the channel.
Yeah, Brian.
I thought I was having power outages because I always leave my computer on, and then I found the power bar and the computer off, like a few times in the past month, and it was the power supply that failed. It wasn't a power outage, so I got to get a new one. It's probably made in fucking China. They only last for a few years, and you got to replace them. The ones with the battery backup in them and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, we were joking that the Canadian Tundra made your whatever go out, and then the signal chat. Oh, power went out.
That's actually one of the good things about StreamYard is it keeps running even if the host like bounces or the power goes out. So that's actually great.
Rich, we were.
Sorry, go ahead. 50.
Yeah, well, we started talking about a bunch of the guys in the group 1%. We got on a signal chat this week about lowering our alcohol consumption and just going what. Not complete 100% app.
You sure you can handle that 50? That's it's a bit of
okay.
The stereotype exists for a reason.
Yes, the stereotype exists for a reason. And I will tell you guys, since I moved, and again, if you've ever listened to, I heard a Christian preacher on the radio one day, and he kept repeating some Bible verse that bad character corrupts, or bad company corrupts good character. He kept saying it, bad company corrupts good character. Mm-hmm. So when I moved here from Ireland 24 years ago, over the last 24 years I've been here, my alcohol consumption is way below what it used to be in Ireland. Naturally, I was in my 20s in Ireland, but still, if you went on a 7-day drinking binge in Ireland and you turned up still every day at the office and put your work in, they'd put a statue up to you, like you'd be salesman of the month type of thing. Whereas over here, they'll take you aside and go, hey, we need to get you on a program. So I went back to Ireland in August. And I had all the guys who I went to high school with, we all went out and they all started accusing me of getting Botox in my face and getting liposuction. And I'm like, dudes, that's because I haven't, because I haven't been drinking 4
It
nights
clears
a
your
week.
skin up. It really
Yeah,
does.
it does. I hadn't been drinking 4 nights a week for the last 25 years and then going eating the 2,000 calorie fish and chips right after it on a Friday and Saturday night. There's a reason you guys look 50 and I don't. And I put that down to the level of alcohol consumption.
Yeah, it just lowers your inhibitions, man. You just don't think.
There's a
straight.
lot to do with the
Well,
diet too, like the diet they eat over there. Like that shit they cook the fish in. You know, when you're talking about fish and chips, like that's shit oil. It's
Seed
fucking
oils.
horrible for you. Yeah, it's seed oils.
Yeah.
Before I got cut off, Moff, just to sort of finish my thought, what I was going to say is like, is there an opportunity for guys in sales who are doing like the shitty sales deals, which is fine. I mean, like there should always be a starting point. Like you're new, fuck you. You're going to have to, put in the work. You're the greenhorn sort of thing. But like an area that I sort of tripped into by accident when I got divorced was that you have to get, I mean, it's generally encouraged as part of the settlement agreement. Is that both parents have a life insurance policy, because if one of the parents are to die, then their income, which is supplementing the raising of the child, would go away. So if you die, then there's a life insurance policy there to make sure the kid's taken care of. They can go to college, university, whatever. So as part of the agreement, the lawyers talk about it and like, we need to get some life insurance here, for the parents. So I talked to my guy, and the policy that I got, I think it's called the term life insurance with a cash surrender value. You probably have something similar down there where the policy payments are pretty high, like $1,200-$1,500 a month, for something that's going to pay out like $500,000 in 20 years, something like that. Like that would be a much more premium client. The payout on it, would be higher. They probably have a better experience as a salesperson. Like I'm just wondering if there's like a graduation process, like where you can move them through these different like buckets of like sort of business that they can work through.
Yeah, you get guys that get a little more experience. I mean, like the final expense, like stuff at the very end, like these small policies is kind of like the playing in the kiddie pool, right? And then you get into stuff where you're selling real financial services, like a term life, or when you're getting guys that are writing. There's there's a lot of hubbub coming around recently about basically being your own bank by using a life insurance policy and then borrowing against it. Something we discussed in some of our 1% discussions about, you can fully fund a year's worth of your value, and you can borrow against the cash value, and you just pay the interest rate instead of putting your money in a bank. You basically act as your own bank, but it's very highly regulated. I'm working with a guy right now that has just got all this money that he's like, dude, I've got more money than I know what to do with. And so I want to try to give as much to my kids as possible without having to tax. So, we're talking about
that's one way to do it.
Strategies, and or you've got like annuities where you've got, instead of putting it into like a 401k or putting it where the market's going to fluctuate, you just put that money into annuity so it never loses value. And then that's the money you get, so that's like your retirement fund. It never goes down, never does go up, but you're not worried about, the Dow crashing or the S&P or whatever. So yeah, so as guys get a little more experience, then there's an opportunity to graduate towards bigger products. But it's
okay. Yeah,
getting them to slog through the first couple of weeks is the real challenge.
Yeah, to Jerry's point, I mean, you could make your ex-spouse a beneficiary, but that'd be stupid. I mean, your kid's a beneficiary, and there's going to be an executor to that, and that could be your lawyer, that could be your sibling. I mean, you can make your ex-spouse the person that handles that. But
yeah, you make them a contingent.
Regarding life insurance policy, guys, any of you younger guys out there, if you ever end up getting acid reflux, change your diet. Do not take any of the acid reflux medicines, because I cannot get $1 million life insurance policy because I took acid reflux meds.
To the point of life insurance as well, while we're on it, because here it is an investment vehicle. It's a tax-free investment vehicle. And the younger you are when you sign up for it, the less your premiums will be, because generally, the younger you are, the longer you're going to live, the less risk there is, you die and sort of thing. I think I was 35-ish when I signed up for mine. I was looking at the premiums based on the tables. Had I done it like 5 or 6 years earlier, I think the premiums would have been like a third less. Like it was pretty significant. And basically the way that it works from like a 30,000 foot altitude down is I think you're paying like $1,400-$1,500 a month for 20 years. Let me just see what that works.
You're paying a lot. Like that's a lot for term. I mean, you must, if you have, that's like $1 million policy, you said?
Yeah.
I mean,
so you're putting about $360,000 into it, and then in 20 years, if you're not dead, you get about $500,000 out, right?
Yeah,
and it's tax-free money.
I just wrote one on myself.
On it.
Yeah, exactly. I just wrote one on myself. That's 25-year term, because I'm too young to qualify for whole life. So like there's two basic types. So like term, it's a term, it expires at some point. Whole life, it's in place every day you die as long as you pay your premiums. But I just wrote a 25-year on myself for $200K and $80 a month or $90 a month or something like that. And then if I outlive it, which I will, knock on wood, if I make it to 55, I can get up to 75% of my money back. So I can get a nice little check for, 11 grand or 12 grand or whatever I threw into it.
Yeah, the way it works here is you get like 100% of your money back plus all the interest on it as well, right? So it's like, and it's tax free. So it's like, why wouldn't you do that if you live in Canada and you've got the disposable income? Like, don't go and lease the new fucking BMW. Like, get yourself one of these life insurance policies that has a payout after 20 years because it's tax free.
Yep.
I wanted to hit on one of the other things that popped up before I got fucking power.
That's MLM.
There was the MLM, and there was this guy who said, if you have to choose between living in a small, boring city where you make a lot of money or living in a big, nice city where the job is harder and make less money, what would you gents pick? It's like all day long, like rural area making way more money. Like, I don't know why anybody with, like an operating brain would want to live in a urban liberal sort of city in North America. It fucking sucks.
Like,
we're do both.
Making less money too.
Find a remote job that will pay you big city rates and then move somewhere else.
The only real downside is you don't have much of a dating pool when you live so far out.
I make a New York income and I live in Mexico City. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, bingo.
Jaren's dead right. Like, I know guys when I lived in New York City who used to commute in from Pennsylvania, and they would get huge New York City money, and they lived in a $175,000 house in Pennsylvania. So it was
which is probably like a 4-bedroom, like
back then it was
house.
And these were this was probably 20 years ago, and these guys were bricklayers earning 36 an hour, servicing $175,000 mortgage. All they were putting up with was a bit of a commute, and that was that.
Somebody brought up the notion of the MLM thing as well, which is multi-level marketing. What's your guys' take on that?
Amway, blow your brains out.
Yeah, Jaron.
I consulted for Herbalife for a bit. So the big thing with that company, which I am amazed at the way they market, because I learned all about creating a cult-like following for your brand, and they're very, very good at that. But with them being internally, they showed us the binder, which is like their Bible, and how it works. And there are people that can play this system and make a lot of money really fast. But at the corporate level, they suss that out pretty quick, and they're constantly updating and revving up their binders so people can't find these loopholes. I'm sure you've seen documentaries or videos on YouTube where like, oh, a guy won a jet from selling in Pepsi points or some crazy shit like that. So if you're able to do something like that, if you're early enough, then maybe. But I think when I worked there, the stat was that 96% of people they'd sign up to be an independent distributor just to really get the product discounts. They never actually built their downline. Exactly. It's kind of the same thing when people ask about girls going on OnlyFans. Can you make money? Yes. If you already have influence, like our biggest people at Herbalife were people that already had a very well-established influence, a huge following. And then they're like, hey, by the way, sign up to be my downline. They did very, very well, and they were good brand ambassadors for us. But 96% of the people is just like, oh, I like the products. And I worked there. We got free products. I really liked Herbalife's products. So I would have potentially signed up too. When you work for the company, you're not allowed to ever be a distributor because you kind of know how the game works. But if it weren't for that, I'd probably be a distributor, but I wouldn't build a downline. I just get the product discounts.
Yeah, the only time it's worth it, in my opinion, is you're the guy running the pyramid and you're at the top. The rest of the plebs down at the bottom, they're just the plebs. So all these people that are like, I'm a whatever distributor, or I'm a licensed blah blah blah, some bullshit Tupperware or candle line or
Mary Kay.
Yeah, whatever the fuck it is. I mean, like you'll never create wealth. I mean, you'll probably earn a little bit of a living, but you're going to be the butt of all jokes when it comes to conversations here at this table.
Yeah, most people don't go anywhere with it. It's kind of, it falls in that hobby category. It's kind of like, I remember years ago on Facebook, like a lot of stay-at-home moms would sell body wraps or whatever. It falls into one of those things, which it might not be a bad topic to touch upon. I don't know necessarily what to call it categorically, but maybe like loser type jobs, or jobs where they're not really jobs. They're just kind of mental masturbation. So you think you're your own business owner, but you're not really making any money. I'm not sure how to classify that. But yeah, but there's a whole category of jobs like that. We alluded to them earlier. Guys online, oh, I'm gonna do drop shipping, bro, or I'm gonna do the FBA thing, or I'm gonna do this. And there's always a new get rich quick du jour type scheme going around the digital spaces these days.
Yeah,
seriously.
what's really interesting about this is that I get this question a lot because it's very, you could look at the insurance agency game as an MLM, but it's not, in the way that, you're not going to make, like, to your point, Rich, like, you're not going to make any fucking money, like selling Tupperware or like Herbalife or Mary Kay or whatever. Like, the only way you can make money in those kind of businesses is building a downline. So all your time and effort is spent recruiting and trying to get people to sell for you, or to get them to recruit other people and build your pyramid. With this, like, you can build out a team, which is what I'm doing. And then eventually, as I sell more, I create a wider spread, not to get all technical again, but I'll start to get rips off what my guys sell. It doesn't take any money out of their pocket, but my agency will pay me a rip of whatever my guys sell. But you don't have to do that at all. Like, you can go out and just sling insurance and sling policies and do 20K, 30K a month if you're good enough, if that's what you want to do. But you can't get rich that way doing the same thing with, like, again, a Mary Kay or Herbalife or a skincare, whatever the hell. So it's kind of it's something where it's an actual vehicle to make money, and you can build a team if that's what you're into.
Yeah.
There's another unintended consequence of doing those MLM type schemes too, which is when you get in the door, when you're being onboarded as like a bottom tier downline distributor, they always tell you, oh, hit up your friends and family, everyone they pull out your Rolodex, your phone book, your contact list, just constantly pepper these guys with pitches on trying to get on board. And I'm sure we all know that guy or guys or girls that they're always hitting you up. Hey, bro, I'm on this new thing. You should definitely check it out. And my ear is tuned now whenever I hear someone, hey, man, I want to talk to you about a business opportunity. Nope, that's a hard no, because they're people. They're always into some kind of scheme, and hey, we want you. We're going to make a ton of money, bro. You're like, you've been at this for 20 years and you've never made a penny. In fact, you owe me money from 10 years ago when you rented a room for me and couldn't pay rent for 3 months, and I couldn't evict you. What are we talking about here? But those people exist.
Nobody is selling anything along the lines of, like, take your skill set. You've got to be good at something and plug it into the right guys, connect, network, see who knows who. And that will be far more profitable than joining some damn Mary Kay or Herbalife or Tupperware distribution system. And you get a lot more respect for it too, and you get to know a lot more people. Because I think something like that, as Jaron said, like, the first thing you display when you open a conversation like that is neediness.
Yep.
Rich, I had a question for you in terms of, I know in your group, it's all about being, creating an elf business, being self-employed, being an entrepreneur. And I think Moff and I both fall into this situation where, in terms of income, I make way more money doing my corporate gig, or I do corporate consulting. I'm 1099. But I make way more money doing that than I make it like the YouTube or the coaching or the selling group memberships. Eventually, someday I want to do that full time. But what's your take on that in terms of, hey, guys, don't do these MLM schemes. Don't do these whatever, like drop shipping or whatever, crypto mining, whatever it is. That like, oh, I'm going to get rich fast. Is there benefit to, okay, you know what? Define your skill set. Make a salary, continue educating yourself on someone else's dime while you're doing your side business on the side.
Yeah, like there's certain schemes that are sold as freedom. You're an entrepreneur, you're the boss, like franchises, MLM, like franchises is another one, right? Because you pay money to acquire territorial rights and get the branding, the know-how, the supply chain, all that sort of shit, right? And you can make quite a lot of money with some franchises. Like if you do a McDonald's franchise, you're going to be a millionaire. There's no question about it, right? It's not something that I would want to do, but you could buy into a franchise like that and make some serious money. But if you're not the founder, so the definition of an entrepreneur is you have to be the founder of the business. And then the second part to that, which qualifies you for entrance to Entrepreneurs Organization, if you want to like sign up for one of their chapters, is you need to be doing over $1 million a year in sales receipts. So if you're not the founder and the idea guy that created the business and doing over $1 million, you're not an entrepreneur by definition. So buying a Tim Hortons franchise, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a franchisee. Right. You run a multi-level marketing Tupperware. I don't care what the fucking outlet is, but let's say you're making $20,000, $30,000 a month. Okay. Yeah. You're making good money. You're still not an entrepreneur. You're just a cog in their wheel. Right. So, like if they put out some memo that says, oh, hey, by the way, you need to hang up this new rainbow swastika upside down, inside out flag that caters to whatever new woke mob thing that's fucking trending in your like a coffee shop or your fucking Tupperware group, then you have to comply. Like there's no question about it, right? That's not the definition of an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur writes his own paycheck. He's in the fucking driver's seat. Yeah, there's bullshit you have to put up to. There's regulatory issues. There's legal issues. There's employee issues. All kinds of stuff that's going to come your way for sure, 100%. But if you're not in a driver's seat running the show, you're not a full-fledged entrepreneur. You're getting there. You're part of the. You got like one foot out of the matrix and one foot kind of still in it, sort of thing. Which is an easier move for some people. I've kind of gone off the beaten path, Jaron. Sorry, what was your original question exactly?
Oh, yeah, I was wondering that. I'm like, are you addressing my question? Is there benefit to if you realize, okay, well, I want to get into the entrepreneurial type thing. However, kind of like Moff's young sales guys, there's gonna be a ramp up period. There's gonna be a runway, and it might be a long runway to
there's a long runway,
any meaningful money.
Yeah, that's right.
So is there benefit to
YouTube and all that?
Yeah, so for me, like I have a good corporate salary for my corporate consulting. So I was like, all right, well, I want to keep the salary because I'm getting ahead with that. But since I'm a minimalist and my expenses are very low, that difference, I can put that towards my side gigs, my other projects, to where I eventually want to be doing that full time. Is there benefit to that, or to a degree?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about YouTube as like the content that we're talking about right now.
It doesn't necessarily have to be YouTube. I'm just using myself as an example. Say whatever my side gig is, whatever my passion is that I want to turn into profit. However, I don't have the funds right now. Or it's like if I go 100% into the business, I might not have enough of a slush fund to really see that off the ground. So is there benefit to keeping a full-time job where you have an established skill set, you have a good reputation in the space as you're doing your side gig?
A lot of people like that, but I'll tell you this. I mean, yes.
You start feeling burned out.
The answer to the question is yes, but at the end of the day, like you'll never be more motivated to get your side gig, your new hustle off the ground if you don't have a steady income coming your way, right? If there's any environment that I could put somebody in that would determine the outcome of success, it would be cut all ties to the bullshit sources that are like kickstands for you right now, like the training wheels, right? Because even though the corporate gig, might pay more right now, the truth of the matter is your ceiling on writing your income for whatever you want it to look like is way higher once you kick off the training wheels. Like you'll go way faster than you will having the training wheels on, right? That's how it works in life. But kicking off the training wheels is hard, right? Like, because you have to get comfortable with being able to balance on those two wheels and not have those little sidekicks there, sort of prop you up. So you will have a higher chance of success, but the chances of you falling down and scraping your knees also goes up dramatically as well. So, I heard 50 sort of nod off to it a little bit, but it's like most guys sort of opt for like the hybrid blend where it's like, I'm going to work on the side hustle while I'm doing the corporate gig. And when the side hustle looks like it has obvious traction, then I'll throw off the corporate gig. And somebody just dropped it in the comment there. Kevin O'Leary once said salary is a drug that they give you to get you to forget about your dreams. And Jaron's not talking about a salary because he's not an employee, because he's a contractor.
Yeah, I've been consulting for years, so I have flexibility in my schedule.
Performance. Yeah, but
I bill by the hour too, so I can build my own schedule.
Yeah.
There's a great quote to answer that by Robert Greene, and I saved it, especially if you're younger. And the quote is the following. It says, "A lower paying position that offers more room to make decisions and carve out empires is preferable to something that pays well but constricts your movements." So that just hit me, because that was kind of my situation a few years ago, was take something that had zero stress, average salary, and then build my thing off the side, which is kind of what happened. And my part two to that would be, Jaron, you said, your minimalist lifestyle. Do you ever think you would like do YouTube topic or one of your channels or shows on how to be minimalist? Because another one of my theories is that going out and buying all the crap that your TV tells you to is the essence of plugged in. And if you can get over that ego trip of not going out and getting all that and living minimalist, it'll benefit you a lot more.
Yeah, I view that your things are chains that pull you behind, especially if you finance them. So I always joke on my channel, I do touch on these topics. I'll start moving more in that direction. But I know when I got my first job out of college, I had an internship for a large defense contractor because I had the abroad experience. So I came out of college making $52,000 a year. This was mid 2000s. And that was higher than the average American family wage at that time. So it's like, oh my God, I made it. And when you're a kid working minimum wage jobs and all of a sudden you're making this kind of money, you don't have any real debt yet. You're like, oh my God, it feels like a lot. So I immediately did what most young kids do. We joke. I lived in San Diego for years. A lot of young Marines do this. They have all that money sitting in the bank. They're deployed. They come back and they finance like a Dodge Challenger or a Charger or Chevy Camaro or Mustang or something. I did the same damn thing. Bought a brand new car that had, like, I think at the time it was like a $500 a month car payment. The total price, it was 5 years old, like $26,000. Like I financed a car that cost half of my annual salary. That's a very dumb decision. Now I'm at the point, I think I'm going to buy a car here, but I'm going to buy like a $4,000 or $5,000 piece of crap that if it gets wrecked, if it gets stolen, if it rains and floods in the basement, then it's whatever.
You don't really need a car in Mexico, though. You could probably get away with a motorcycle or something, eh?
Yeah, like a little. Yeah, they sell little Vespas at Walmart here, which is pretty funny. They're like $1,500.
Yeah, I would buy a Vespa. Those are kind of gay. I would get something more, like motorcycle based. But yeah, I mean, you don't get cold winters.
Right? Took a nice
ride a
little
bike
spill on
year
a
round,
Vespa
right?
a few months back.
I like sports cars too. My goal a few years ago that I want to be in the point where I can walk in, preferably new, but even used would work fine. To where I can walk in and then buy at least an entry level Porsche in cash. And I got to that point this last year. I'm like, and it's really scratching at me like, I want one. But realistically, traffic here is so bad that you don't ever go more than 20, 30 kilometers an hour. It's just start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. So
all day long, man. In a city, you can split lanes. You can park
split
anywhere.
lanes here. Yeah. That, or I don't mind doing the Ubers. I've actually priced it out that doing an Uber would kind of break even with the cost of maintenance and ownership of an automobile. And you don't have to, I don't worry about traffic. I'm in the back of the Uber, organizing email, doing tender swiping or whatever on my phone. I don't have to be stressed out with people trying to run me off the road.
Do you like custom sort of like coach building Porsches, kind of like Singer Porsches? Because I've seen a few Singers are fucking sick, dude.
I've seen some cool ones around here. I live in more of like an upper class.
You know what a Singer is,
financial. Right? Yeah, I've seen them around, but I've never really done any research or gotten into that. The last Porsche I had, it was a Boxster Type S. It was an older one, but it was a lot of fun. Just shifting through the gears, and when there's not California traffic, carving up the canyons. I had a really good time doing that. I was always American muscle car type guy, and then I started getting more into the German cars.
Yeah. When I was down visiting down in LA, I met up with Josh, and I picked up a Boxster S, and we went for like a little rip through the canyons together. I was following him in his M3, and Boxster S is surprisingly a fun car for what you pay for it.
It's like a go-kart, and there's nothing like driving through Southern California with the top down. That's something I wanted to experience in my life. So I was like, you know what? I'm living in California. I have the money. I'll go ahead and get a used little roadster convertible, and it was fun. I'm glad that's an experience I got to have in life.
There was a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about, but we got to kind of start wrapping up, man. I wanted to get into stuff like psychedelics, and there was another issue we had with, like getting the girls and stuff we were talking about before we kicked off, but we'll maybe deal with that in another show. But you guys want to shout out real quick to anything before we bounce?
No, this is the least girl or game show I think we've had in a while, and the mushrooms are legal in DC. You can buy them in the corner store.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about psychedelics next time for sure. Then. All right, so I'll be live Monday night 8 p.m. On the Unplugged Alpha podcast. So see you guys then. I'll create the show for Sunday some point in the morning.
What's the topic?
I'm going to cover not so much like the Liver King specifically, but I want to talk more about business in December. But like, there's this notion that there's a lot of these fucking like fraudsters out there that are advertising promises, and they like their business practices are just upside down. So I'm going to be using that as a bit of an example. But these guys with these fake names is usually a dead giveaway. Liver King, fucking,
people are amazed he's
in the third person.
I love the memes. People are like, what? He's on steroids? Like, you can look at that physique, and it's pretty.
Well, that's
pretty
something
obvious.
That's something that's obvious, but it's something that happens a lot in the Manoswap too, where a lot of guys use pen names and they're complete frauds as well. And it's always people that don't use their real names that have something to hide, right? Anyway, we'll see you guys Monday night, 8 p.m. Thanks for hopping on, boys. We'll see you soon, and you guys have a good weekend. All right.